those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome to the program, folks. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine on this Thursday morning. Man, we have a jam-packed show for you guys today, okay? All right, so coming up at the bottom of this hour, we're going to be talking once again with Raynard Jackson. Raynard Jackson is the founder and chairman of Black Americans for a Better Future. It's a 527 super PAC established to get more blacks involved in the Republican Party. He's been on once before. He specifically focuses on black entrepreneurs. So we're going to talk to him again specifically about, you remember at the beginning of the week, Joe Biden in that really weird video where he's talking about popcorn or corn pop, the infamous, corn pop, the infamous gangster. So anyway, for some reason, I've been craving Captain Crunch because of this, corn pop. Anyway, so we'll be talking to Mr. Jackson coming up 7:33. Then, the author of the book Search and Destroy Inside the Campaign Against Brett Kavanaugh. That's a book written by a man by the name of Ryan Lovelace. He's been on the program before, but see, he has an interesting take because this whole Kavanaugh thing is in the news. I can't tell you, I saw these people on Facebook. I've got liberal friends on Facebook, and they're just reporting it as fact. They're using stories from liberal outlets, just reporting as fact. Breaking news. It's conclusive. Brett Kavanaugh lied to Congress. Like, really? Anyway, we'll talk to him about that. It's really frustrating when you have, people who people who, you would consider friends that are literally getting and believing news, fake news, that is, 180 degrees from what the actual truth is. Isn't that sad? I mean, when you have two different segments of the population, it's just sad to me that believe something that you believe to be completely false, and we believe something that they believe to be completely false, meaning like not even a shred of truth to it. You know what I mean? And and I would say, some people will say, well, that's because the truth is in the middle. I don't know anymore. I think we're so far apart that either one of us is right or much closer to the actual truth, and the other one is wrong and way far away from it. But anyway. Do what?
There's the old saying.
What's that saying? I don't know what you mean. The old saying, you say.
There are three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth.
Yeah. Now, well, yeah. I mean, I get that. I understand that. I'm just saying.
Now that doesn't mean anyone's farther away. Or it doesn't mean that we're equally far away from the truth. One could be closer to the truth, but the truth is somewhere in there.
Yeah. Then at 7:33 today, our last long segment, we're going to be talking to Arkansan, Mr. Tyler Beaver. He had a little problem on Facebook. This was in the Gazette a couple of, maybe a week ago or so. He was trying to sell cattle, and Facebook just kept putting him in Facebook jail and making his life hard. So what did he do? He created an app. That's right. The Open Range app, where now you can sell livestock. So I wanted to highlight this app and this great achievement and really small business. So we're going to be talking with Mr. Tyler Beaver coming up at 7:33 this morning. Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about Arkansas, shall we? The great state of Arkansas. We've been involved in, our politicians rather, have been involved in big FBI scandals and what the Gazette has called one of the largest public corruption scandals, if not the largest in the last 20 years. We have a little bit of an update. See, there have been people that have already pled guilty or have been convicted of these crimes. One of these guys is State Senator John Woods. That's right. State Senator John Woods was found guilty. He's a felon. He's serving 18 years. 18 years. Wow. Well, during this trial, it wasn't just John Woods. It was also the president of Ecclesia College, Orrin Paris. It was also lobbyist/consultant Randall Shelton, right? They're doing time as well. Then you got Micah Neal, who was part of the initial plea, who just did some time, I think, under house arrest, because he was the one that was the initial cooperating witness with the government. But see, there was an issue with this in this trial, or at least people think there was an issue there's this FBI agent by the last name of Cesario. It's me, Cesario. Yeah, this FBI agent who had a laptop that the FBI wanted to look at that had the recordings, like the secret recordings. So Micah Neal, this guy who was the initial cooperating witness. Can we go ahead and throw this new article up there, Joe? It was let's see here, the newest one, the one from today. Yeah, a brief FBI laptop issue in case. So you had this guy. It's me, Cesario. He was ordered to turn the laptop over to the FBI, and because this laptop had recordings of Micah Neal, who was going around with a pen, and he recorded well over 100 hours of talks with John Woods and others about their little public corruption scandal. So Micah Neal, I think, knew he was in trouble, and so he started. According to the FBI, this was unauthorized. The FBI wasn't there to take notes, so they don't have the context and everything else. But he was waving this little secret recording pen around, and then he was keeping track of it. Well, so that gets uploaded to a Dropbox, and then it gets downloaded onto this computer that belonged to this FBI agent. It's me, it's Cesario. And, sorry, that's going to stick, I think. And so Cesario gets ordered to turn the laptop over and takes it to a computer shop in Bentonville and has it professionally wiped. And then he himself wipes the laptop again and then turns it over to the FBI. Now, he says, if you got to remember this. He says it was because of medical records that were on the laptop that he didn't want anybody to see or anything like that. Well, so what this did was give the defense, the defense attorneys for John Woods, Micah Neal, and Randall Shelton, they're crying foul because the government, did something wrong. The FBI did something wrong here. So that brings us to the news of the day. This headline right here, brief, FBI laptop not issue in case. So this is the government trying to squash a motion that's been filed by these guys who are in jail right now, who are saying, we think the government acted wrongly here. So the government based its case on bank, business, and legislative records, they're claiming, along with the defendant's emails and text messages. But, the stuff that was on the laptop would not have kept John Woods out of jail. That's what they're saying, is that the stuff that was on that laptop would not have kept John Woods from being convicted on charges, the government argues, in an appeal. Now, this was made public yesterday. Nothing significant to the case originated from the laptop. And let's see, it gives us kind of a rundown here. And here is a quote from the brief. The bottom line is this: Agent Cesario committed intentional misconduct when he wiped the laptop. Because this guy's Cesario, one more time, it's me, Cesario. This guy Cesario is being investigated by the Inspector General because of his behavior surrounding this laptop. Because you gotta admit it, whether his story is true, which is, hey, I had medical records on there and I wanted it wiped. Okay, but it raises red flags, right? Like, you can't help but look at that scenario and ask the question, what else was on that laptop, man? You know what I mean? Am I the only one? The bottom line is this: Agent Cesario committed intentional misconduct when he wiped the laptop, but there is no evidence in the record to show and no good reason to believe that he destroyed any information that is material to the charges and defenses in this case, but not already in the defendant's possession. The brief says, quoting a ruling from the trial judge. Okay. Then it does talk about the Inspector General. Again, so Wednesday's brief also reveals defense attorneys received 13 hours out of 65 hours of secret recordings. The recordings led to the discovery that Cesario wiped his computer. Let's lurch back, shall we? Because this is fascinating. Obviously, the government's like, you got to understand something. You never know. Randall Shelton and Orrin Paris, Mike O'Neill, not Mike O'Neill, John Woods. You never know what can happen in something like this. I mean, it's possible that there's, during the appeal, that they look at this case and they say, the government acted improperly, sorry, and these guys could go free. I mean, it's very possible. Now, you got to remember this corruption case was just blatantly illegal. They took taxpayer dollars, right? The politicians gifted this school, Ecclesia, a Christian school, with taxpayer dollars, right? And then the school used those taxpayer dollars to hire a consultant that was technically supposed to be the gateway. Then the consultant passed the kickbacks on to the politicians that initially made the whole transaction possible. This is something that, the people of Arkansas were seriously defrauded by this scheme. And then you're getting other legislators because it has to, it's a good cause. It's ecclesia, the name for church in the Bible. So we really, and it's just, on that basis alone, it's also outrageous what they were doing here. All right, so let's lurch back to January 26th of 2018. This article, go ahead, Joe, aired investigation into former Arkansas Senator FBI agent testifies. Wiping computer wrong, he says, as defendants try to get graft case tossed. So this was the initial discovery. If you go all the way back to 2018 in January, and here's a rundown. Cesario was ordered to turn the laptop over to computer experts at the FBI state headquarters in Little Rock after the discrepancy was brought to light at a November 30th pretrial hearing. Before doing that, he had the laptop professionally erased because it contained personal medical records. Then he erased the computer's hard drive again before turning it in. Now, when I read that back in January 2018, I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, I really thought the case might be over. I also thought maybe that there was an even deeper conspiracy, that this was done intentionally to get the politicians, give them the ability to beat the rap, if you will. And he even said, Cesario, no, I should not have done that. But then listen to this. In the case, U.S. District Judge Timothy Brooks questioned Cesario directly, asking if the purpose of the second erasing was in any way to conceal or obscure the first disk wipe by a computer repair shop in Bentonville. Cesario swore that was not the intent, that he only wanted to make sure the medical records were gone. And there's some, just so you know, there's some discussion in here that the reason Cesario wanted to wipe the medical records is because he was planning on filing a medical malpractice lawsuit. And this all came out in the trial. Like, he was planning. I know this is all kind of minutia, but it's important that we understand, if we see a headline, a month or two from now, that all these guys are going to walk free, it's important we know why. If that actually happens, folks, I'm telling you right now, like the people of Arkansas's confidence in the justice system is going to be it's going to be devastated, It really will. Anyway, let me know what you think about this. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. here, the defense, this is kind of bogus, though, too, because the defense here, they got the audio they needed eventually. They just are claiming that the audio was withheld from us because then there's a discrepancy about how, there were these other files that they thought were all uploaded to the Dropbox, but then they realized they left some on accident. But they got everything they needed eventually, right? Because all these audio files, they weren't just stored on this computer. These audio files were parts, they were made into hard copy discs, like they had tangible discs, and that's where they originated, and then they were uploaded to Dropbox, and this guy just downloaded them. This FBI agent just downloaded those files onto his computer, Dropbox. Now, here's the other thing. He also testified, if you read this article, that the reason he used that computer is because he couldn't use official FBI computers because FBI, according to him, doesn't allow their servers to connect to Dropbox in any way. Now, that's kind of actually pretty curious in and of itself. So that's why he was downloading these files on a personal computer or an FBI laptop that wasn't hooked into the FBI system. Anyway, telephone number 870-275-9799. Sound off on Facebook. When we come back, I want to go over your Facebook comments responding to the article that came out yesterday about Jim Hendren and his plan to tax vaping to solve an emotional health crisis that we're being told about every day now. Vaping. It's the next, I guess vaping is the next big thing we're going to get. I don't know. A lot of you out there think like I do, that this is just kind of exploiting the public's fear over vaping and trying to get more money out of the people's hands and into the government's pockets. We'll read your comments next. Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. We've been following the reports in the media about what's going on in Pope County, the pursuit of a casino, the Quorum Court voting to recommend a specific group to come and build a casino, and then the city of Russellville, city council appointing a special committee to try to, look at other recommendations. I mean, for the most part, if you look at the reporting in Pope County, you would assume that a casino is a done deal. I want to introduce you, though, I want to get the other side of the story, because I still believe that the people of Pope County don't want a casino in their backyard. I want to introduce you to Larry Walker.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy?
Because I wish it wasn't an issue.
Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Okay, all right. So here are some of your comments. This is the article was posted yesterday up at conduitforaction.org. Hendren on vaping. He's all about that tax, all about that tax. And so some of your Facebook posts. This is my favorite one from Scout. Scout writes, "This is a personal liberty issue to me. I'm an adult that wishes to choose a healthier alternative to cigarettes, and I should not be taxed for it. Democrat will tax anything getting public attention and use children as the reason." Yeah, because they're saying, we'll tax you, but the money will go to school safety, which in the article, there is, we have no guarantee of that. Whatever school spends on school safety now, they could just take it and spend it somewhere else if this bill were to pass. Let's see here. Melissa, no new taxes. Time to decrease spending and remove some taxes. That's a good point, Melissa. Let's see. We have Roger. Their only solution is more taxes. They are not very smart if they can't figure out how to raise money differently. Yeah, by like decreasing taxes and giving small businesses more incentive to hire more people, which creates a larger tax base, which then gives the government more revenue. Billy, I like this. This is a good one, too. Billy writes, "There is nothing Asa and his so-called conservatives won't tax. Air, rain, different taxes for different smells, speech. If you need any more ideas, Asa, call me." That's interesting that Asa is getting the blame for what his nephew Jim Hendren is. By the way, Democrat. We've heard that before, but what a hilarious way to describe Senator Hendren, a Republican who keeps coming up with tax increases and things like earned income tax credits, which are Democrat policies. Let's see. Randall on Facebook. "The Arkansas way, tax everything so the politicians can blow more money." I mean, really, is this the reputation that we want with a super majority Republican? It's one thing to come out and say, do what some of these other states are doing, which is banning the flavors. I mean, they did all this with tobacco. You used to have candied cigarettes. We don't want you to make those anymore. You know what I mean? Okay, I mean, that's one thing. It's kind of, to me, a separate debate. But taxing it at 68%? When New York, the state of New York, they're proposing some vaping taxes, but they're proposing a 20% tax, not 68%, where you're going to effectively shut down these businesses. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Let's see, what else do we have here? We got some more. Let's see here. Oh, this is an interesting one. Simon, of course politicians like more tax revenue, but the fight on vaping isn't just to tax it. They're losing revenue from a long-lasting big tobacco settlement that is tied to cigarette sales, which have been in decline. Look even deeper. Now, that's another leg here. We might need to explore that. The casino.
Absolutely. I think what's essentially happened is there's some people that are losing some hope. And so that dialogue for them is changing to, well, I guess if we're going to have one, then this is what we're going to do. But really, they just need to know that they don't have to have one. The Constitution allows them that way out.
So talk about this. There seems to be a legal battle ahead where, there was that referendum where Pope County said, we're going to have another vote on this if Amendment 100 passes. Amendment 100 does pass. So there are there some of them under the opinion that they don't have to follow the ordinance that was passed because the right to a constitution is now in the Arkansas or the right to a casino is now in the Arkansas Constitution?
Well, evidently that's what our quorum court thinks, or some of them, not all of them. But there were 8 of them that voted in that direction, and encouraged by the county judge to do that, and they kind of came to that conclusion that way. They chose to avoid the current law that's on the books to have that vote for the local county, and press on in the guise that, well, it's the local ordinance is unconstitutional and we have to have one under the statewide constitution.
So what is next? I mean, how do you stop it? I mean, how do the citizens stop it? What is Citizens for a Better Pope County doing to stop this?
Well, right now we're in the middle of 2 lawsuits. We're in the middle of a lawsuit in Pope County that challenges essentially that question, the validity of the local ordinance, and it being constitutional. There's also an aspect of that's challenging essentially the due process for the people of Pope County, that the people of Pope County legally have a say in what goes on, and that was taken away from them by their officials, and so now they don't have a say. And it was done by the officials having private meetings, discussing stuff without public notice, coming to essentially a $38 million buyout with the Cherokee Nation, without public input on that, and that's really where we're at. That are also one of the other things that we're challenging in our lawsuit in Polk County is that Amendment 100 is in and of itself unconstitutional by imposing itself upon a locality that's in conflict with another constitutional amendment that's already on the books that essentially says that the legislation cannot be imposed upon a locality against its will.
Well, that's
exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. I'm going to have more of your Facebook comments, by the way, on this story. This vaping story, to increase the taxes here in Arkansas on vaping. Folks, I want to welcome back to the program the founder and chairman of Black Americans for a Better Future. His name is Raynard Jackson. Mr. Jackson, thanks so much for joining us again, sir.
Paul, always good to be talking to folks in God's country.
That's exactly right. Hey, so real quick, refresh our memory. Black Americans for a Better Future. What are you trying to accomplish with this organization?
Well, our goal is to get more blacks involved in the conservative movement and the Republican Party, and we focus strictly on the black entrepreneur because that's the low-hanging fruit as well as that's the gateway into the black community.
Now, low-hanging fruit, why? Because, is it because they, somebody who's an entrepreneur and successful understands how the market works and wants to keep more of their own money?
Well, yeah, not only that, but remember, these are the guys that's creating the jobs in the local community, and so they're the ones that stay on top of issues like education and understand that our public school systems are not being successful in educating our kids. Therefore, they're some of the biggest proponents of school choice and vouchers because they're the ones that have to remediate these kids in order for them to hire folks, in order for them to continue to grow their firms. So they are knee-deep involved in a lot of local policies that are conservative, and no one reaches out to them.
Wow. That's exactly right. Yeah, I hear that from business owners a lot. We have a public school system that, essentially educates kids for 13 years, and then you have business owners who are trying to hire, and they're having trouble finding, good employees sometimes,
Yeah. And also, Paul, let me digress quick second. In your intro into this segment, you were talking about the issue of vaping. I'm confused as heck with what's going on, and let me tell you why. How do we tell these kids not to vape, but yet we tell them, hey, we want to legalize marijuana all over the place? I mean, I'm confused as hell.
That's a really good point. That's, definitely a contradiction there. Definitely a double standard. Okay, so I'm also curious. So, as somebody who is trying to, recruit the black entrepreneur, show them that they can, the Republican Party has a place for them. What do you make of some of these Democrat candidates and what they're saying, and what is the mood out there with what the Democrat Party is offering right now?
Oh, Paul, let me tell you something. I talk to my black Democrat friends all over the country every day. They are offended. They are insulted that these Democrat candidates go into the black community and they're talking about free, race. Can you believe in 2019, Paul, the Democrats are relitigating civil rights and racial issues from the 60s? Can you believe that's what they're going into the black community? And a lot of blacks are offended as heck because they're like, don't come into to us and our group talking about criminal justice reform. I've never been to jail. I don't have family members in jail. You're talking about, at best, Paul, under the First Step Act, 1.5 million people being affected by that legislation. What about the other 29 million black folks? And so a lot of blacks are finding the campaign issues, the rhetoric, the conversation they're having with the black community offensive as heck.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And then let's talk about Joe Biden for a second. I mean, he appears to continue to do well in the polls, even though he has gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. On Monday, we were playing the video of him talking about this legendary, criminal. His name is Corn Pop. What do you think about Corn Pop?
I've been getting a lot of media calls about that issue, Paul. Let me tell you, so as I've told you before, I've been black most of my life. And I don't know one black person with the moniker of Corn Pop in my life. And so I'm wondering if this guy even exists.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people are. But, boy, he tells that story with rambling conviction. That's what I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And again, but the other thing is, Paul, with that Corn Pop story, now, you down in God's country probably are a lot smarter than I am, but I'm still trying to figure out what the point of the story was. I don't know.
That's a great point. And my producer in the other room, Joe, he's shaking his head like, yeah, exactly. Like, what? And he's talking about that he used to be a lifeguard at a public pool. I don't know what the point was, that he's a tough guy or something.
I don't know, or blacks shouldn't wear the donk in their hair like they did back in the 60s.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like Biden just filled out racial issues in a vacuum, and there's no storyline, there's no theme, there's no point to it, and he's just rambling out there.
Yeah, that's a good point, and maybe that's because he's older, a little bit more senile. He maybe used to do that with a little bit more tact in his younger days, but maybe it kind of exposes this disingenuous sympathy that he had for the black community all along, whereas, just gets very disrespectful, where if you just say these key buzzwords, he thinks that the black community will just automatically be on the Democrat Party side, which has been the case for a very long time until recently.
Well, let me interpret what, Paul, you are inartfully trying to say, me being the guru of communication.
Okay.
What you're saying is Joe Biden is trying too hard. He's not being natural. It's not being authentic. Juxtapose him, say, with someone like my buddy, former Congressman Jack Kemp, who big-time Republican conservative. When he went into the black community, he went in there dropping names because as he often joked publicly, he took more showers with blacks than most black folks because he played in the NFL. And so when Jack Kemp would go into the black community, he would sit up there and start calling out people in the audience because he spent 20 years working with some local housing advocate or some local rape crisis counselor because he spent time in the community and knew these people by name and knew their stories.
I want to, by the way, we're talking with Raynard Jackson. He's the founder and chairman of the Black Americans for a Better Future. They're focusing on black entrepreneurs, trying to get them involved in the Republican Party. I'd like to talk a little bit about how the black community, in your opinion, they feel about the economy right now, the record low black unemployment rate. And you know, when the president back during the 2016 campaign was asking for the black vote, and he said, what have you got to lose? You know, a lot of people said, well, that's a racist statement. But no, he was essentially saying, you know, the community basically has been voting one way, you know, for a long time, and look where you are. You know, maybe try something different. What are their thoughts right now on the economy and President Trump?
Well, listen, you can't argue with the numbers, Paul. The unemployment rate is absolutely the lowest in the history of the country. The job participation rate, things like that. Where I think the administration needs to do a better job is let's put some bones, let's put some meat on the statistics, because as you know, Paul, being in God's country, Republicans and conservatives are great at quoting you statistics and economic data. What we need to do now is put some meat and put life into these statistics and create a story, a narrative that actually moves people, not only in the black community, but move the white, suburban, independent, middle-class voters who the president is having trouble with electorally. So if we can paint a story about what he's done relative to the black community and put life into those statistics, then you start moving the vote.
You know, that's... Man, that's exactly right. You know, we're talking about is a narrative, which the left is really, really good at, at painting a narrative and evoking emotion. And yeah, I agree. I mean, that you say, you know, a lot of people, you know, just want to win on the cold hard facts, but you do have to craft it for people. I mean, you know, I think 2016 proved that as well. So anyway. Raynard Jackson, is there a place people can go if they want to know more about what the Black Americans for a Better Future are doing?
Well, they can talk to Paul Harrell, that's for sure. He's our press secretary down there in God's country. Okay. But no, they can go to our website, BAFBF, Black Americans for a Better Future.org, or Google my name, Raynard Jackson. All our social media pop up, emails and things like that. And Paul, we would love to hear from any of your listeners down there from God's country.
All righty. Well, hey, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you, my friend.
All righty. Folks, we're going to make a smaller YouTube video of this clip. We're going to put it up at conduitnews.com. We're going to take a break, going to reset, and going to be back with you here in just a moment. Exactly what this is. I mean, I live in Craighead County. I mean, I voted against this, but the fact is, if I voted for it, that's kind of weird. That's messed up that I'm going to be able to tell other people who are living in a different local government, in a different authority, different jurisdiction, I'm gonna have a say in what they have to put in their backyard.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of what we've argued from the beginning on this deal. Is, you know, if let's say, you know, the state of Arkansas just wants to go ahead and we just want to have one statewide garbage dump, and we're going to say that, you know, Pulaski County, you're going to get this garbage dump, and we're going to bring all our trash to your county. We're not going to put any of it in our county anymore, and we're all going to vote as a state to do that to you. And you're going to have to accept it whether you like it or not. And that's essentially what this did.
How much do you think local officials are really just tempted by the sheer amount of money that they think is going to come in, the tax dollars? How much essentially government's revenue is going to grow, government's going to grow by bringing a casino in?
You know, I think that's a big lure for, I mean, gosh, in any politician in any stage is when you've got money involved, those dollar signs speak. And I'm not speaking personally and saying somebody's personally getting paid off here, but when they can look like they've just done something really tremendous for their constituents because they're bringing in these dollars, whether it's good dollars or bad, they think that that's a big appeal. So that, part of this, they're building the county jail. They're gonna I can't remember all the stuff that's in that $38 million agreement, but they're giving money essentially to every school district in Polk County, except for Russellville School District, which is ironic. And Russellville, the city of Russellville, also is not listed in their $38 million agreement. They got left out of that conspicuously.
What's going on with that? Like, can you speak to that? I mean, why was Russellville left out, and why now this city council push? What's the dynamic there? Because I have no idea.
Paul, it all reeks, and I don't know all the details, and I think that's part of the issue. Is the people don't know exactly what has happened there. There's a lot of rumor and speculation around it. There's been a lot of rumors that have said it's just vindictive because the city of Russellville, the mayor, had ran on the platform that he was not going to sign a letter of support, and he held by that throughout the process. So when it came to this piece, the city of Russellville was going to annex in that piece of property to try and get some of the tax revenue out of that, and then they were told they were going to get bonded out of that property so that they could not get revenue even if they annexed it by the county. That there was some vindictiveness in that. The county judge has gone on record now and said that no, he's included Russellville, just not directly, because he has included a county jail.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, 870-275-9799 if you would like to contribute to the conversation. That's a good convo we had with Mr. Jackson about the work that he's doing. The idea that you have to put a positive, you got to put meat on the bones of those statistics. And he mentioned the suburban, maybe the suburban areas where Donald Trump may or may not, it may not be doing as well according to some polls. But when they realize that his policies have effect, there were reports yesterday that, if Donald Trump loses, it might be because of white liberals. You know what I mean? Who are wearing all of this, all of this collective guilt that college professors and the media tell them that they have to have now and everything else. And it's like, hang on, wait a second. If they can get past their orange man bad brainwashing, then they might actually see what the country was like before and what it's like now. You know what I mean? It's pretty interesting stuff. All right, some more of your comments. Shall we get to some more of your comments? We're talking about this article. It was up at conduitforaction.org. If Hendren gets his e-cigarette tax despite all other taxes passed this year, then the question becomes, who or what will he insist on taxing next? And so some people are responding to that question, meaning if Jim Hendren gets to tax vaping at 68%, or an increase of 68%, or I can't remember which it is, but if he gets his way, what else is he going to tax? Some people have already said on the Facebook page, they've said maybe smells, like the different types of smells. You have a different tax for each type of smell. I know what this, speaking of smells, I know what this all smells like to me. So John on Facebook, answering the question, what else is he going to tax next? Well, there are a lot of people having yard sales and not reporting the income. Don't give them any ideas. That's actually, you never know, right? That could be an epidemic. By the way, how many people a year die? Joe, will you find out over there how many people die a year from obesity? Because I just want everyone to understand this. The whole country right now is freaking out over vaping. And look, I get it. People are like, nicotine to kids is bad, that sort of thing. I understand. But folks, you've had people smoking in high school I mean, forever. I mean, no one remember Danny Zuko with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth in Greece? Does no one remember this? This is what teenagers do. I mean, I'm not suggesting it, but this is just what has happened. Kids are going to try things, right? It's up to the parents. It's up to the parents to say, you're not going to do this. It's up to the parents to discipline their kids. What do we got? Okay. So, according to the 2016 study, it's just a boilerplate Google search. 2.8 million people die from obesity every year, and we have 6 or 7 cases of kids dying because they vaped, and if you read the reports, they were vaping black market THC into their lungs. So, what about this tax increase, or what about anything the government's proposing across the board, is still going to stop kids from getting this stuff illegally? You know what I mean? Like, come on. This is not, in terms of Jim Hendren's proposal here, this is not about kids' safety. This is about taxing. This is about getting more money. People are switching to this. It's a popular product. The government may very well start losing money the more people that go to it for a smoking alternative if they're trying to quit the combustible cigarettes. And, this is about money to the government from the people, using the outrage that you're hearing in the media about the dangers and evils of vaping. And I just think, wow, is there anything this state won't try to capitalize on? This state's leaders, to take more money out of the private economy and give it to the government. This is just, it's just too much, right? And that's why you have these people saying things like this. Let's see here. Keep going. Let's see. We've got some more quotes here. Once again, so here's Caleb on Facebook. Once again, more taxes. All they care about is money. Now, here's something funny. Larry on Facebook writes, plastics. We should tax plastics. I think that may have something to do with Senator Hendren's owning of a plastic company. I may be wrong, but I guess Larry knows a little something about what's going on. Cindy writes, this is Arkansas's answer to everything. More taxes. David, nobody is elected to increase or create taxes. Now not what we elect politicians for. Not any sane person anyway. Let's see here. And again, Simon, we've talked about this. Politicians like more tax revenue, but the fight on vaping isn't just to tax it. And he mentions the tobacco. They're trying to move this over and tax it like tobacco. Lance, I thought these idiots were Republicans. Chip, nah, most are rhinos, as much as it pains me to say it. BB was more conservative than these jokers. I can't get on board with that. Chip, Mike Beebe wasn't more conservative, but BB was at least honest with how he represented himself to the voters in terms of he was a Democrat. Like, he was this, middle of the road, big government Democrat. And that's the way he, presented himself. And so the Republicans in the legislature actually fought him. So you could say that BB and Asa have pursued, in many cases, a lot of the same policies. Now, maybe not with the tax cuts that they've put in place, trying to make Arkansas more competitive, bringing the rate down. But in terms of, and that's what's so sad is, where if you look at the revenue that they're going after, they may bring this rate down, but then they're trying to tax, all these other things. And, it has been said before, and, you have to, hindsight's 20/20, but if we'd had a Democrat governor with this Republican supermajority legislature, you got to think there'd been a lot of people that be voting a lot more conservatively because they'd be voting more of the platform. They'd be overriding vetoes. They wouldn't be doing this they wouldn't be lurching to the left in so many cases. I mean, come on, if we're in a budget crisis, come out and tell us that you need more money. And then let us say, nope, you need to cut spending. You need to cut spending and quit coming back to us and inventing these new emergencies where you got to tax us. Just like it was let's just think about this for a second. Okay, we're now told by the leaders, in Arkansas government, this is an emergency. And they're talking about doing this in a special session. We need to pass a tax increase on vaping now because it's the one thing that I didn't get done that we really needed to get done. Just like we were told, it's an emergency. We have to raise your gas taxes to pay for roads. Even though we had 4 years. It was a manufactured crisis. If 4 years ago we had started using money from general revenue and putting it into the highway and having an increasing amount of that money, this would not be the issue it was. But no, it was a manufactured crisis. We got to raise taxes at the pump, and we're facing that gas tax increase coming up October 1st. And now here we go. Vaping is a crisis. Kids are ingesting nicotine and flavors, and it's come on, really? Really? Quit acting surprised that this is what kids do. Again, I'm not excusing it, but put the responsibility on parents. Well, you don't understand, Paul. The schools are complaining. Well, tell the schools to get more strict with their discipline and the consequences for vaping. How about that, right? I mean, if you make it that if you're caught vaping in school, it's an automatic expulsion, no exceptions, I'm pretty sure people will alter their behavior. Oh, but then you're going to have, you can't expel a student. California, Gavin Newsom, you can't expel a student anymore for bad behavior. That's what they're doing over there. There are ways to do this without taxing people more. Why is that the solution? Taking more money from us is the solution. Here's a text message. The vape tax is likely a distraction from what they are doing that we haven't discovered yet. Yeah. No, I think that's true. State Representative Lane Jean said what this was about. It's already in plain text in the paper. The reason they're going after the vaping business in Arkansas is because they've looked at the books and first of all, if you want to know why in the regular session it was so strange that Jim Hendren proposed this and Jim Hendren stood at a press conference with a bunch of Democrats because he was going to give them what they wanted, an earned income tax credit. I just think that that whole thing was odd, right? And even John Brummett this morning, John Brummett is defending Jim Hendren and defending the Republicans who are thinking about taxing vaping. John Brummett, liberal, one of the biggest liberals in the state. And he's out there defending this right now. Once again. I think Lane Jean, though, State Representative Lane Jean, who's the head of budget, he summed it up when he said, this is for Medicaid. We need to use this money. If we tax vaping, we need to use it to shore up Medicaid because Medicaid spending is on the rise, which contracts their entire narrative over the last 4 years, which is, we have a Medicaid task force that's gonna take money away from traditional Medicaid so we can pay for those who are on the private option, who are able to work but choose not to. It's a mess. But that's a really smart text message that right now, whatever it is they're doing, look over here. There's probably stuff that a lot of lawmakers and we the people don't know yet. Yeah. So, anyway, we'll have more. We're going to be talking with author Ryan Lovelace when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Broadcasting from the Baker Implement Studios. Baker Implement, serving you with 11 convenient locations. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM Jonesboro.
and the county jail. Russellville's the biggest user of that county jail in Polk County, and he's including a convention center as a part of this project that Russellville has had that they've been saving up with a 1-cent sales tax for the last 10 years for a convention center. So he's essentially done that for the people of Russellville, and that's just honestly, that's just a big front on that 1-cent sales tax. Essentially, what has happened there is that if they go ahead and go forward with that, with the casino and put that in there, the city of Russellville will not be able to use their 1-cent sales tax they've been using or saving up for the last 10 years to build this convention center, because that is designated funds, and there's really no way to pull that money back out and get it back to the people of Russellville who've been saving for that convention center. And so essentially it's actually undermining the process of Russellville and the money that Russellville has been putting away for 10 years.
Wow. Man, it definitely seems there's a lot of moving pieces. It all seems very complex, and I know I'm not making any specific allegations, but anytime something like this gets this complex, there's always the opportunity for corruption. So we need to be watching out for that. We're talking with attorney Larry Walker, representing Citizens for a Better Polk County. I have another question to ask, and again, I'm not from Polk County. I've spent some time in the area. It's a lovely place. Has there been any discussion about whether or not this could hurt the enrollment in Arkansas Tech? And the only reason I say that is if I'm a parent and I'm leaving my kid in college, leaving them, they're going off to college, I'm going to leave them there. And I know the casino will say, no, we'll have strict, you won't be able to get in unless you're 21. But come on, we all know what can happen. Has that come up at all, that this might actually deter some people who don't want their kids around that type of vice or that type of environment even?
I haven't heard a lot regarding that. I mean, I definitely would be. I've got four young kids, and I don't necessarily want them in a community that's going to have this stuff going on. I mean, goodness gracious. We spoke with a guy. I can't remember the exact statistics, but in Gulfport, Mississippi, there's a group down there that deals with human trafficking. And they talked about just being on that I-10 corridor and the casinos that are there in Gulfport, the Gulfport area. They talked about their statistics before a casino came in and then after, and it was something like a 4 times increase in the amount of human trafficking incidents after the casinos came through. And I'm thinking, my goodness, do I want to send? I've got a little girl. Do I want to send my girl to this college that is right down the street? Literally within a mile, 2 miles of this casino, knowing that that's the kind of activity that goes on around there. That's just not something that I know that I think I would want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's not just the vice; it's the environment that comes. And look, I'm sure that the Cherokee Nation is going to. They're probably going to say, it'll be a better environment. It won't be like typical. A typical casino, but come on, man. I mean, we know what kind of goes on at casinos and things like that.
Well,
go ahead.
Absolutely. That bother that kind of rhetoric has been going on all around this process. That there is a small minority of folks that are really advocating for a casino, and they keep saying this. Well, this is Russellville. That's not going to happen in Russellville. We'll be like this. There's often such and such place, and it doesn't have the statistics. We'll be like that. Well, to say you're going to be the exception to the rule on something like that, with no pun intended, that's one big bet to place, because you're playing with some pretty against some pretty bad odds on something like that, and to risk that kind of thing, whether it be human trafficking, whether it be alcohol addiction, whether it be gaming addiction. And those kinds of things, and even the vast majority of real estate associations around the country will tell you that the first 7 to 10 years look pretty good real estate wise in an area that brings in a casino, but after that 7 to 10 year mark, it just plummets in real estate values. So to say that we're going to overcome that in Russellville and beat those odds, and beat those statistics that happen across the country on this stuff. Just seems a little bit ridiculous and a little bit naive to think that we could beat that.
You mentioned the secret meetings. Can you go into a little bit more detail? Because from what I read, the reports, some of the accounts, seems like we have some of these officials confirming, yeah, I mean, we met in secret.
Absolutely.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome back. Hey, this is hour number 2. My name is Paul. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Telephone number, call or text 870-275-9799. Also, facebook.com/Conduit News. So back on September 15th, it was pretty much everybody knew that these new Kavanaugh accusations were a big dud. Headline, the New York Times anti-Kavanaugh bombshell is actually a dud. This is from the National Review. And yet I still have liberals that I'm friends with on Facebook, longtime acquaintances, that are posting articles that say, confirmed, Brett Kavanaugh lied. And it's just so frustrating that we have people who are believing things that are completely the opposite of the truth, like not even a shred of the truth. That's why on this segment, because this has been in the news of the last, almost week now, I wanted to bring in the author of the book, Search and Destroy, Inside the Campaign Against Brett Kavanaugh. Ryan Lovelace is back with us. Ryan, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So what can you tell us about, what was your reaction when the New York Times ran with this latest hit piece?
Well, I think really what's so telling about the Times' lack of disclosure in that work, regarding the Pogrebin and Kelly's book, the excerpt from it that they first ran in the Times, was that it's emblematic of a larger pattern to provide affirmation instead of information to their readers. Never in the initial piece that went up online and in print for the Times did it mention that the woman who is the alleged victim had no recollection of it happening, has failed to confirm that any sexual misconduct ever happened, and has actually been telling her friends, reportedly, that she doesn't think it happened to begin with. But it was also interesting to me that it didn't mention how it was personal for those Times reporters. The reason for that article and the book that it's corresponding with is because those authors have a personal connection to Brett Kavanaugh. One of them, Robin Pogrebin, is a classmate of Brett Kavanaugh's, and that's her authority in telling that story. It's not that she's a legal journalist or an investigative journalist or something else. She has a connection that's personal to the matter, and I think that's really important to note, because it's also about how, it shows how these newest rumors, because they're really rumors, not even allegations, because no one's actually accusing him. It's just people saying, I think I heard something at some point. It's the same way those allegations that came last year traded up the chain of the press. This is exactly how nonsense becomes nightly news, through a compliant press, activist lawyers, and ambitious politicians that, have ulterior motives.
Wow. And so, what there was a lot of speculation when this came out, because people on the right knew this was bogus. Why do you think they chose now to do this? Was it just about the book? Was it just about book sales? Or some people are like, wow, Ruth Bader Ginsburg must be really sick, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's difficult to know their intent, but certainly the piece in the Times was intended to drive sales. I think it's also about the timing of establishing a narrative around Justice Kavanaugh. I was cognizant of that in writing Search and Destroy and the timing of my own book. One of the things that I wanted to do was to ensure that people had the ability to look things up for themselves and see all this in the full light of day that I knew they otherwise wouldn't, because we're getting close to the anniversary of the hearings. We're just past the anniversary of Christine Blasey Ford stepping forward and making all these public accusations against Brett Kavanaugh, and the end of the month will be closer to Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation, and next month is really the first time we're going to hear him speak at length in any kind of a public forum. And I think with all of those things coming around, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny again on him, and especially as we head into 2020 with Democrats intending to delve in there and try to gin up far-left support, progressive support for their own candidates. I think now is the time where they're trying to set down a narrative about who the man is and how he got to where he is now. And I think that's really why we're seeing some of this come out today, this week, and this month.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you mentioned Christine Blasey Ford. Right before this new fake accusation came out about Brett Kavanaugh, or one that they really can't confirm, really bad journalism, because like you said, the victim doesn't even remember it. I was reading stories about how Blasey Ford's dad went to Brett Kavanaugh's dad, wrote him a letter, and then saw him at the country club and said, "Hey, just so you know, I think Brett Kavanaugh should have been confirmed." And people are like, "Wow, her own father doesn't even believe her accusations." And then all of a sudden, that really didn't pick up much steam, because you kind of get the jab from the left, which is, "Oh, we have new allegations."
Right. And I think that's kind of the sort of thing that might continue as we get closer to October. And I think it really mirrors what happened last year in a lot of ways. And I think it's all about fighting over the courts again. With Justice Gorsuch in the first 2 years of President Trump's administration, with Justice Gorsuch, it was all about him sitting on a Stolen seat, that belonged to Merrick Garland, President Obama's pick. And with Justice Kavanaugh, it's all about putting an asterisk next to his name, as Christine Blasey Ford's attorney has said. So I think as we get closer to the anniversary of these things, the left is going to try to remind folks that they need to view this in a way such that the justices that have been picked by President Trump are not legitimate, that the court doesn't have authority. And I think that's all about looking toward 2022, where we also see folks on the left demand justice, and a dark money group that organizes around the courts and spends millions of dollars, and others push for ideas of expanding the Supreme Court, push for adding justices to it to dilute the justices that are there, and then also do their best, level best, to undermine the justices that are there and push for the impeachment of Kavanaugh and others. I think that's all what that's about.
Do you think there's going to be a ruling come down really soon, and the left is just preparing to say that this ruling is not legitimate? Maybe it undoes like long-standing precedent. It's something that the left, doesn't want. I mean, is that what they're worried about? And I mean, it may be Roe versus Wade, but it could be something. This could be something else, that we don't even know about.
There could be, and in their own estimation, Deborah Katz, Christine Blasey Ford's attorney, has said that Christine Blasey Ford was motivated in part by Roe versus Wade. So if there is something that the court does with respect to that, I could see that happening. Yeah. But I think that's part of what's so concerning about all of this, is we don't precisely know how it might manifest itself. But if the lower court judges feel emboldened by, a groundswell of American people, or an apparent one, that would suggest that they don't have to listen to the Supreme Court, there's the potential to see nationwide injunctions from lower court judges stopping the Trump administration's agenda at issues where the Supreme Court has ruled differently. And I think, too, the Colorado cake baker Jack Phillips of Masterpiece Cake Shop, who, because of his Christian faith, didn't want to bake a specific cake and design it a certain way for a same-sex marriage, and yet he still has people of different beliefs trying to get him to bake cakes with messages depicted on them that he doesn't want to do over and over and over, even after the Supreme Court's already ruled on that.
Well, yeah, and that just you mentioned injunction. I mean, there's talk that the Supreme Court is going to get involved by stopping some of these lower courts from having the broad authority of injunctions, and stopping some of these policies before it gets to the Supreme Court. And really slowing down, some of the policies that are trying to be advocated. I could see that being a constitutional crisis. I mean, if they can say and advance the false narrative, Brett Kavanaugh lied, he shouldn't be on the court, therefore this 5-4 decision is no longer legitimate. I mean, that may be what they're going for here.
I think it could be. And I think what would happen, then if you had judges across the country emboldened, it could only go that much worse. Justice Thomas has actually spoken about nationwide injunctions, and he's written about it in dissents and things to suggest that the Supreme Court needs to take a long look at it and potentially do away with it, and at least have a chance to review it. And it hasn't yet. And I think that's something that could come up in the forthcoming term, and it'll be something especially to keep an eye on if there is another vacancy, say if Justice Ginsburg voluntarily leaves before 2020, or if another vacancy comes about involuntarily, because the left loves Justice Ginsburg. not just because of what she does as a judge, but because of her willingness to speak out about politics, talk about constitutional amendments she wants, talk about the legislation she wants to see Congress enact. And if we get to a situation where President Trump has the opportunity to pick an originalist and textualist like Gorsuch and Kavanaugh that would just look to the Constitution to replace someone who looks to politics at a time when all of this is being wrapped up in lower court judges feeling emboldened potentially by the loss of faith in the Supreme Court, then I think there would be a real problem and fight on our hands, kind of like we've never seen before.
Wow. What a potential constitutional crisis. I thank you for your speculation there, Ryan. And Ryan Lovelace, author of Search and Destroy: Inside the Campaign Against Brett Kavanaugh. The book's available now. Ryan, best of luck to you, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your analysis this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. Folks, we're going to make a short little YouTube clip of this, put it up at the Conduit News YouTube channel. Please subscribe and click the little bell to receive notifications. Back in just a moment.
That convention center. And so essentially it's actually undermining the process of Russellville and the money that Russellville has been putting away for 10 years.
Wow. Man, it definitely seems there's a lot of moving pieces. It all seems very complex. And, I know I'm not making any specific allegations, but anytime something like this gets this complex, there's always the opportunity for corruption. So we need to be watching out for that. We're talking with attorney Larry Walker, representing Citizens for a Better Pope County. I have another question to ask, and I'm not from Pope County. I've spent some time in the area. It's a lovely place. Has there been any discussion about whether or not this could hurt the enrollment in Arkansas Tech? And the only reason I say that is if I'm a parent and I'm leaving my kid in college, leaving them, they're going off to college, I'm going to leave them there. And I know the casino will say, no, we'll have strict, you won't be able to get in unless you're 21. But come on, we all know what can happen. Has that come up at all? That this might
It's a
actually
PHP parody.
some people who don't want their kids around?
You got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug, marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good.
Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP parody.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So, once again, we were just talking last hour. We're going to continue this. We've kind of been talking about this all day because, I think it is probably the biggest news of the week that the governor's nephew, Senator Jim Hendren, is proposing a giant tax increase on vaping, riding this public, I don't know if you say outrage, but certainly the public is being inundated with news reports about the dangers of vaping, and the Trump administration does ban all flavors, and Congress is looking at this. They're looking into Juul and that sort of thing. And Arkansas says, hey, you know what? This is an opportunity. To me, this is what it just seems like. They say, hey, this is an opportunity to tax people more. Let's do it. We need more money. Oh, well, the money will go to schools. It's for the kids. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I mean, how so? I mean, is it money seriously, is it money that the Arkansas government is already giving to the kids? I mean, is it money that the state government is already providing the schools, that now that state money can now go somewhere else? Is it a shell game? State Representative Lane Jean saying, you know what, if we do the vaping tax, it doesn't need to go to schools. It needs to go to the Medicaid program where things are out of control. Ooh, I bet they didn't like that he said that. I got a feeling that they did not like that he said that. Huh. I mean, what's another crisis? Like, what is there something else we could tax? We talked about taxing air, different smells last hour. And these were some of your suggestions on the Facebook page that you guys were sounding off on. You know, we could tax obesity. I mean, how many people again? 2.8 million in 2016 died of obesity-related disease. There's a lot more. I mean, how many kids have died from the vaping? 7? I mean, it's a tragedy either way you look at it. One life, you know. One life is precious. But is this really the government's responsibility to step in? Is it parents' responsibility, right? Because last time I checked, people have been smoking tobacco or nicotine for a long time. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for nicotine, this country wouldn't even be here. If it wasn't for the tobacco plant, this country would not be here. If it wasn't for, is it John Ralph? Who was it that actually smuggled the tobacco seeds over here? Now, it was contraband. It's what made the economy boom. Anyway, well, what else could we tax? What's another tragedy? How about the amount of prisoners that are dying inside the Arkansas Department of Corrections because they can't control? What is it? Yeah, it's a drug. Yeah, it's a substance they're trying to control, and yet somehow prisoners are dying because they're smoking a synthetic version of marijuana called the K2 drug. The Arkansas Department of Corrections has announced. This is from September 12th. Fox 16. Arkansas Department of Corrections has announced they have recovered a backpack full of dangerous contraband, the K2 drug. Officers found 1.4 pounds of the synthetic marijuana, and in the last 2 years alone, K2 accounts for 39 prisoner deaths at the department, not including new deaths in 2019, which there have been several. Why don't we find a way to tax that? Is there a way we could tax K2 sales to prisoners? Oh, I know they're dying, but I mean, they're going to do it anyway. But like, can we find a way? Maybe Senator Hendren and the Arkansas leadership want to find a way to tax synthetic marijuana that's circulating into Arkansas prisoners. I mean, it's a tragedy too. Those people are dying as well, and they're under the care of Arkansas government. I wonder if we can find a way to tax them. Maybe we can tax them like I don't know. Maybe if they want to buy the K2 marijuana, they're going to owe the government like 1 cigarette. Maybe 2. Is that too steep? I don't know. Isn't that the currency, right? Cigarettes, individual cigarettes. But see, then we're talking, tobacco again. Where'd they get those cigarettes? Did they pay taxes on those cigarettes? Would that then be double taxation? I'm making fun of this because that's the only thing that these politicians hate more than anything is being made fun of for their ideas that they think are, the moral high ground. There's nothing that makes them more frustrated when they think that their idea, well, no, I'm on the moral high ground. These kids, we're doing this for the kids. No, you're doing this for the money, okay? You're doing it for the money. And listen, look, I know that I'm not pretending that it's not a problem. I'm not pretending that kids vaping is an issue, but doesn't this happen like once a generation where there's something new that kids are trying and it's always, the old folks. I mean, this is just the way it is. I'm saying the old folks are right in this, but they're like, you kids, you better quit doing that. And yet this is what happens. And yeah, this is a popular thing. Yes, it's easy. But come on, tell me, I thought we raised the smoking age to 21. So, I mean, what's the problem? I mean, problem solved, right? Oh, people are still getting the product and smoking. High school students are still smoking tobacco, are still smoking nicotine. Oh, man, really? I thought that the little government law that y'all passed, the little piece of paper, was going to somehow, prevent kids from getting the product. Because It was 18, and they were still smoking it at 16 and 17. So changing it to 21 is going to somehow stop them even more? You guys act like taxing this problem is going to make it go away. And the fact is, you know it won't, or you wouldn't want to tax it in the first place. So it's ridiculous. This will not make the problem go away. Kids are still going to do this, okay? Like, and that's, I know that's an argument maybe you don't want to hear, but if anything, if you do anything, you should fund PSAs telling parents to be parents, right? I would be more in favor of that. Yeah, spending government money to actually tell parents to be parents and to discipline their kids and to teach them to listen at a very young age. And to set up consequences for them when they don't do what you say at a very, very young age. And it's hard. I can tell you right now, as the father of an almost 2.5-year-old, it's hard. And you know what? You've got to do it. And you got to be willing to let it ruin your dinner. You know, I'm going to correct this behavior now and tomorrow and a week from now, so I don't have to correct it 50 times 5 years from now. And, you know, or you can be passive and, you know, then your kid won't. And listen, and I know full well my daughter may grow up and be a big vapor, and there's nothing I can do about it too, right? But we live in a free society. Do not listen to these. These are nanny. This is nanny state. That's what this is. This is nanny statism. Let's take something that we say is a problem. We can point to the social tragedies. We can point to these deaths. We can point to nicotine addiction as well. We can point to the evil tobacco companies, which, yeah, of course, they're selling an addictive product or the nicotine or whatever. But then let's say this is the government's responsibility to step in. You know what? No. You've set the minimum age, and there's some libertarians that would even say you've gone too far with even that. But let's just say you've set the minimum age. You've raised it to 21. How come that's not working? So what makes you think that taxing the product is going to solve this problem? I don't think with a straight face, Jim Hendren and others could look me in the eye and say, we want this problem to go away, because you're taxing it. And the government, over time, is going to love this increase in revenue. You guys want the increase in revenue. Right? I mean, that's the whole point, right? They need the habits to continue so that they get more money into the government coffers. And you know what? And I'll say this too. There's a good chance that all of this stuff that I'm talking about, I'm disseminating the vaping. I'm disseminating this vaping news. The Gazette is, Talk Business and Politics, everybody's talking about it online. You know what? There's probably some 16-year-old kid out there right now that's like, well, you know what? I've been thinking about it. And now it's like, you know, it's all over the news. They're probably going out and going to try to get a vape. You know? I mean, there's all kinds of, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, come on, guys. Are we really thinking about what we're doing here? Government cannot solve all of society's problems. In a free society, people are going to do things that you don't like, right? And if you really want to do something, pass a law that mandates public schools have irrevocable, strict rules on vaping, and meaning you don't get an education for the rest of the year. You're expelled. You get to be held back a year if you're caught vaping in school, and have a no-tolerance policy. And before it goes into effect, you make sure every parent in the school knows. You get people to sign something saying you have read this rule, you understand, and you know, and then you know what you'll do? See, here's the thing: this government law won't work either, because there's kids that don't like school and would love to be expelled. So then they would vape, so they get kicked out of school. You see, so you're going to try to fix one problem. See, even my own solution is flawed. You try to fix one problem, and you're going to create a bunch of other problems. Just leave us alone and let us keep money in the private economy. Quit trying to take more money from us, please. That type of vice, or that type of environment, even.
I haven't heard a lot regarding that. I mean, I definitely would be. I've got four young kids, and I don't necessarily want them in a community that's going to have this stuff going on. I mean, goodness gracious. We spoke with I can't remember the exact statistics, but in Gulfport, Mississippi, there's a group down there that deals with human trafficking. And they talked about just being on that I-10 corridor and the casinos that are there in Gulfport, the Gulfport area. They talked about their statistics before a casino came in and then after, and it was something like a 4 times increase in the amount of human trafficking incidents after the casinos came through. And I'm thinking, my goodness, do I want to send? I've got a little girl. Do I want to send my girl to this college that is right down the street? Literally within a mile, 2 miles of this casino, knowing that that's the kind of activity that goes on around there. That's just not something that I know that I think I would want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's not just the vice; it's the environment that comes. And look, I'm sure that the Cherokee Nation is going to. They're probably going to say, it'll be a better environment. It won't be like typical. A typical casino, but come on, man. I mean, we know what kind of goes on at casinos and things like that.
Well,
go ahead.
Absolutely. That kind of rhetoric has been going on all around this process. That there is a small minority of folks that are really advocating for a casino, and they keep saying this. Well, this is Russellville. That's not going to happen in Russellville. We'll be like this. There's often such and such place, and it doesn't have those statistics. We'll be like that. Well, to say you're going to be the exception to the rule on something like that, with no pun intended, that's one big bet to place, because you're playing some pretty against some pretty bad odds on something like that, and to risk that kind of thing, whether it be human trafficking, whether it be alcohol addiction, whether it be gaming addiction. And those kinds of things, and even the vast majority of real estate associations around the country will tell you that the first 7 to 10 years look pretty good real estate wise in an area that brings in a casino, but after that 7 to 10 year mark, it just plummets in real estate values. So to say that we're going to overcome that in Russellville and beat those odds, beat those statistics that happen across the country on this stuff. Just seems a little bit ridiculous and a little bit naive to think that we could beat that.
You mentioned the secret meetings. Can you go into a little bit more detail? Because from what I read, the reports, some of the accounts, seems like we have some of these officials confirming, we met in secret.
Absolutely, and they've pretty much said it.
Home stretch here on the program. Thanks so much for being with us today, folks. We love to do these segments when we highlight small business success and small business here in Arkansas. We like to spotlight that because small business is the backbone of Arkansas, and most of the time, you take, for example, what's going to happen to the small business owners that a couple years ago decided to invest in a vape shop. Well, the tax man cometh. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I want to welcome to the program. We have Mr. Tyler Beaver on the line. Tyler is his company is the Beef Cattle Company, actually spelled B-E-A-F. Tyler, welcome to the program, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. I'm glad that you could spend some time with us this morning. I saw that the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette did a really good write-up about your innovation. So first of all, tell us a little bit how you got into the cattle business.
Well, I grew up. My grandparents live in southern Oklahoma, and they have cattle and a farm and ranch and all that down there. So I kind of grew up around it. And then I went off and did the military for 4 or 5 years, and then came back and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I knew I always liked that, and so kind of decided to go in that area.
Hey, what branch of service were you in, Tyler?
I was in the Air Force.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you very much for your service.
No problem.
Tyler, you're using Facebook, right? And you're using Facebook to what? Like buy and sell cattle?
Yeah, I mean, it's really more than that. I mean, they think that that it's just us. I mean, really, there's about hundreds of thousands of people that buy and sell livestock, whether it's sheep or cattle or horses or goats or whatever, on Facebook.
And Facebook basically like what'd they do? They were putting you in Facebook jail?
Well, like I said, October of 2016, they changed the user agreement to where there is no more animal sales. Well, I mean, we've sold thousands and tens of thousands of cattle on Facebook. I mean, that's kind of a large chunk of our business. So we just kind of had to figure out a new place to go, or come up with a new place to go, and for other people to go to. Like I said, they shut down groups with 20, 30, 100,000, 200,000 here about a month and a half ago. A large, animal rights organization purchased 25%, I believe, of the shares of Facebook, and so that really came into play here in the last 45, 60 days, and I would say they've shut down a good 70% of all the animal sales. I mean, so we're talking a couple 100,000 animal sales, here as of the last, like I said, 45 to 60 days. They've made a tremendous impact. So the app, Open Range and all that has really come into play and really been used here the last 2 months. It has been produced and it has been out on the market, 8 months, 9 months, but there was no need for it until the pressure came to go somewhere else.
I got you. So you're saying now that is awesome. So you guys were prepared. So we're talking with Tyler.
I was prepared.
Yeah, you were talking with Tyler Beaver. He is the creator of this app that's become a very fast growing phenomenon. In the digital community. It's called the Open Range app. You can get it on your phone, the Open Range app, and it is for farmers and ranchers, to buy and sell, animals, livestock. So you say that since the animal rights groups that they don't want us to eat cows or use animals the way God intended for them to be used, they have shut down Facebook's capability. So it's no longer politically correct, according to Facebook, to have this feature. And so you're saying that since that has really ratcheted up and they're canceling all of these little marketplaces on Facebook, that your app has seen an explosion. So how many downloads are you getting? I mean, what's like an average day?
When all that first happened here 45 days ago, something like that, I mean, we were seeing 1,500 downloads a day.
Wow.
And at this point, we're still seeing a couple hundred downloads a day, every day. And like I said, it's just organic, word of mouth, and we're not really... We are advertising it a little bit, but not much. We've had, like interviews like this. We'll have one on KNWA Sunday. We had one in Farm and Dairy Magazine. We've been on a few podcasts and stuff. So people are interested in it,
Wow.
And I think that's really where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Because it's not coming from our personal advertising at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a need, and this is something. So let me ask you this: so the app is free, correct?
Yes.
All right, so it's a free app. So then I'm assuming you've got ads or something at the top of the page and that sort of thing.
No, we have a premium listing group. We have if you look at the app, we have a community wall, which is, everybody can kind of talk and discuss and all that. And then we have, all the different pages, cattle and horses and tack and, homemade leather stuff and employment on ranches and all that. And then we have a group that is premium listings. And so there's a few ads on there from different companies, and then there's, people selling big groups of cattle and all that type of stuff, or horses or a horse show or whatever. And so there's been a little bit of payment from that. I mean, but really At the end of the day, I mean, it's a free app, and it's just a place for everyone to go to not have to worry about all the issues that Facebook is having now.
Wow. And, and I think this just kind of goes into a long list as well of Facebook having issues, whether they're discriminating against people because of their points of view. It used to be a platform where you could just say what was on your mind, and now that's not so much. And now, I mean, I think this is a big story that you have the left's, anti, I don't know, I would say they're anti-animal in terms of the way I look at animals. But they would say they're pro-animal. I just think it's another example of them, kind of embracing left-wing policies that, quite frankly, are about less freedom. And the whole thing with the Facebook, when you could buy animal, I mean, it's just voluntary cooperation. What is wrong with voluntary cooperation? And, then you, but it created an opportunity for you, Tyler, didn't it?
Right.
Well,
like I said, I mean, it's going to happen either way. I mean, cattle are going to be sold, horses are going to be sold, all those kind of things. It just creates another hurdle, that you got to get over. I mean, but it's not like that's really changing, changing how, people still have to eat,
Hey, let me ask you this, as somebody who is, a rancher, in your opinion, how is the cattle market going? How is the beef market going?
Terribly.
Really?
The cattle market is down. I mean, you're seeing calves go for, dollars, when they should be up in the 150, 160 range, 100-weight price. All this fire stuff in northern Missouri, and there's a big issue with that, and then NCBA kind of refusing to step in, and it's a big argument right now in the beef business. It's a big headache, and people are wondering where their beef checkoff dollars are going, and a lot of people need some help. I mean, because cattle prices are through the floor, and there really doesn't seem to be a whole lot of end in sight. I mean, everybody's just hoping for this weather to break and all that, and maybe we'll get a jump up, by a dime or a quarter or something like that, and get straightened out a little bit, but who knows?
So can you enlighten me and some of our listeners who maybe are not really aware of the market intricacies and why the prices are the way they are? I mean, you mentioned the fires in Missouri, you mentioned the weather. Can you just treat us like we're not ranchers and we don't know why the prices are low?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but the recent issue has been the Tyson packing house fire up in, was it Holcomb, Missouri, I believe?
Okay.
And it burnt a large packing plant down. I don't remember the percentages off the top of my head and everything, but they killed. I say killed. What I mean is they produced a lot of boxed beef They produced a lot of beef out of that packing plant on a daily basis and a weekly basis. Well, so what happened was, there was a fire, and then once that fire happened, they had to divert all of these cattle to other places, other packing houses. Well, that creates a surplus in the feed yard, and so all these feed yards are going to have to hang on to these cattle a little bit longer and put a little bit more feed in them. And if they're going to have to put more feed in them, then they have to buy them at a cheaper price on the front end, which is what's coming down to the farmers, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so they get a little less money for their cattle because the feedlots are going to have to feed them longer because they're going to have to hang on to them longer because, of the packing house issues. But the argument is that that's not a real issue, that is kind of a synthetic issue that was created. Not necessarily that there was a fire, but that the packing houses can't keep up, and that it has, altered this, the cattle prices so much. I know that they have, sent them to different packing houses all over the nation, but I don't know. It's a big argument right now. I mean, because when you sell a calf or a cow at a sale barn, there's a beef checkoff dollar for every one that's ever sold across the whole United States, and $2 in Texas. And all those, there's millions and millions of dollars a week, that are collected and that go to, your beef checkoff money, and that money is supposed to protect the producer, and fight for us and fight for our, value with our cattle and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people feel like that's not happening at the moment against the packing houses.
Yeah, man. Well, I do appreciate you, telling us what's actually going on. I don't think a lot of people knew, some of those intricacies and details. And I certainly hope, the market turns around and gets better for our beef farmers. Now, on the other hand, Tyler, I'm sure the environmentalists want us to stop eating cows, which is never going to happen over my dead body, right?
Right.
So anyway, that certainly wouldn't be the answer to fixing the market, is for people to stop eating meat, right?
No, definitely. Something like, what is it, 70-something, maybe 80-something% of all grains produced are not good for human consumption. They're good for only animal consumption. And so as soon as you do that, you've got a lot of people that are producing all these things that can only grow these types of grains that cattle can consume, and now they can't produce anything. And so what are those people going to do for a living? There's so many issues with it.
Yeah. Well, also the issue is that I think, I think cow is delicious. So that's.
Well, yeah, of course. Right.
Tyler.
There's a lot of issues. But,
yeah, there are. Tyler Beaver. Okay, we appreciate you spending time with us. You're the creator of the Open Range app. I want people to go get it if they want to buy or sell cows or livestock. You go to your app store. I'm assuming I have an iPhone. I'm assuming this is also on Android, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is on web.
And it's on the web. So is there a site they can go to get it?
Yes, openrange.app.
There we go. Openrange.app. Tyler, I appreciate your innovation. I appreciate you also being in Arkansas and spending some time with us this morning.
I appreciate it.
All righty. Tyler Beaver, everybody. We're going to take a break. We're going to reset. We've got your meme of the day coming your way. You don't want to miss that. And this is Conduit News. We'll be back in just a moment. That type of vice, or that type of environment, even.
I haven't heard a lot regarding that. I definitely would be. I've got four young kids. And I don't necessarily want them in a community that's going to have this stuff going on. Goodness gracious. We spoke with a guy, I can't remember the exact statistics, but in Gulfport, Mississippi, there's a group down there that deals with human trafficking. And they talked about just being on that I-10 corridor and the casinos that are there in Gulfport, the Gulfport area. They talked about their statistics before a casino came in and then after. And it was something like a 4 times increase in the amount of human trafficking incidents after the casinos came through. And I'm thinking, my goodness, do I want to send? I've got a little girl. Do I want to send my girl to this college that is right down the street, literally within a mile, 2 miles of this casino, knowing that that's the kind of activity that goes on around there? That's just not something that I know that I think I would want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's not just the vice; it's the environment that comes. And look, I'm sure that the Cherokee Nation is going to, they're probably going to say, it'll be a better environment. It won't be like typical, a typical casino. But come on, man. We know what kind of goes on at casinos and things like that.
Well,
go ahead.
Absolutely. That bother that kind of rhetoric has been going on all around this process. That there is a small minority of folks that are really advocating for a casino, and they keep saying this. Well, this is Russellville. That's not going to happen in Russellville. We'll be like this. There's often such and such place, and it doesn't have those statistics. We'll be like that. Well, to say you're going to be the exception to the rule on something like that, with no pun intended, that's one big bet to place. because you're playing with some pretty against some pretty bad odds on something like that, and to risk that kind of thing, whether it be human trafficking, whether it be alcohol addiction, whether it be gaming addiction, and those kinds of things. And even, the vast majority of real estate associations around the country will tell you that the first, 7 to 10 years look pretty good real estate-wise in an area that brings in a casino. But after that 7 to 10-year mark, it just plummets in real estate values. So to say that we're going to overcome that in Russellville and beat those odds, and beat those statistics that happen across the country on this stuff, just seems a little bit ridiculous and a little bit naive to think that we could beat that.
You mentioned the secret meetings. Can you go into a little bit more detail? Because from what I read, the reports, some of the accounts, seems like we have some of these officials.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back to the show. All right, we're going to get to your meme of the day here in a minute, but Joe just had an idea that I haven't shared with you. I haven't run this by you, but I have an idea for the meme of the day. Okay, I don't know how we do it. I don't know, but it's be a Lord of the Rings meme. Okay, where King Theoden of Rohan, okay, who is under the spell of Sauron via Grima Wormtongue, whispering these dark things. So he's under spell, right? So I don't know. Get okay, yeah. And I just think of Gandalf, once he casts out Sauron, and he looks at Theoden, and he says, "Breathe the free air again, brother." Okay, so I think Theoden, okay, could be labeled the Republican Party, the Arkansas Republican Party platform, okay? And then who is Grima Wormtongue in that scenario? Whispering these things, manipulating it, and basically making it like a shell. Rhinos. Okay, rhinos. Yeah, so we could label Grima Wormtongue Rhino, and you've made essentially the platform a shell, right? And then who would be Gandalf in that situation? That would be the voters, or no, I don't think so. Joe says I would be Gandalf. Actually, I think I like that. I like that version better. Oh man, like I'm nerding out now at the thought of that. Seriously, right? Who doesn't want to be the Mithrandian? Telephone number is 870-275-9799. We could make that meme though, but you could make Gandalf the voters, or you could make Gandalf the truth, but the truth comes and like exposes the fact that you're your former self, right? That the party here in Arkansas that's campaigned on not growing government, i.e. giving it more money to grow, with all of their tax cuts and tax increases, well, guess what? We're paying the net tax increase of $70 million this fiscal year. And we have the president pro tem, a Republican, also, Jim Hendren. He's now being called on Facebook. It's circulating that he's being called Jimocrat Hendren, and that he is proposing to tax the people even more. Now, are they taxing a vice? Yeah, they're taxing vaping. This new industry, and it's new, and it's taking off. And guess what? People are abusing it, and people are dying. Although, according to reports, it's not from these normal vapes. It's from these ones that are already illegal in the first place. And then I do want to point out what Raynard Jackson said on the program last hour, and he was saying it's really weird to me that everybody is freaking out over vaping, but then you have the same people who are saying We got to legalize marijuana. You know, the same, and that from a media standpoint. I mean, the media is all about it. You know, legalize marijuana, recreational marijuana, medical marijuana. It doesn't matter. Legalize it. Oh, but vaping is now a huge problem. That's a good point. It's a big double standard.
We should have seen this coming, though, like a mile away. Because the moment that vaping and e-cigarettes and anything new comes on the scene that is technically not taxed at the time.
Yeah.
Take the internet, for example. Passed internet sales tax.
Yeah.
Why did we think that anything like something new would be any different?
Yeah.
The internet started to become really big. It's gotten massive over the last decade.
Yeah, with the phones
online
and the
sales
apps.
Sales have gone through the roof, and they're continuing to grow. So of course, tax away. That's exactly what they wanted to do. That's what they did. And now, a new thing has come about: e-cigarettes, vaping, and the like. Tax it right away.
Yeah.
As soon as possible.
Yeah, because it's they just all they see is dollar signs. And they're going to tell you, no, we're compassionate. We're trying to give this money back to the schools. Why? So you can take the money you're already spending on schools and go spend it somewhere else.
It's the same scheme that they pulled with the internet sales tax initially. The first sales tax
that failed.
Yeah, well, the one that was coupled with the veterans cut.
Oh well, no, you're confused there. That was
digital downloads.
Digital downloads.
Yes, but that was the slippery slope start.
Yeah, it was
to the internet sales tax. But the digital downloads tax that was coupled with the veterans tax, it started the debate on what should we tax, and then that started when it got to the internet sales tax. Oh, the whole point of this is to save downtown businesses. Those small businesses, we're going to save those businesses. And then guess what happened? We passed the internet sales tax, but guess what happened after that? The people voted for a minimum wage increase, which kills small businesses. And then we actually talked about this the other day. So I have probably a controversial opinion upon this.
Well, do we want to get to the meat of the day?
Real quick, this won't take long.
Okay.
I think
I really appreciate your grasp of history. It's really fascinating.
I think it's kind of
you're making great points.
I think it's kind of garbage that so when does a business go from being considered small to medium, a small to medium business? Well, the Arkansas legislators defined that. I think it's 50 employees.
They attempted to. They failed. I think.
Did it fail?
Yeah. Well, they were trying to help, mitigate some of this. This minimum wage increase is going to hurt small business.
If they it's
going to hurt the people that need jobs.
Yeah. Let's say they implement this at all. Like it then caps businesses from ever growing from small to medium, because once you jump that gap,
there'll be a cliff.
There's a massive drop off in terms of money.
Yeah. But they were just trying to. They were definitely trying to mitigate it, but. Yeah, that's right. I mean, but to your point, that's interesting though. We have to save our Main Street businesses, or we can just say the heck with it. Here's your meme of the day, courtesy of conservative dot memes. Memes is spelled MEEMS in this case. A double felony in California. This is fantastic. You have a extended magazine, I'm sorry, what do they say? A high capacity magazine. That's their term, right? A high capacity magazine, but the bullets are little straws. The rounds are little straws. The rounds are little straws there. Isn't that funny? So they got little straws cut to the size of the rounds, and they're inside the high capacity magazine. So that's like a double felony in California because they've banned straws in high capacity magazine. Oh man, that's a good meme. We'll post it up at the Twitter page at Conduit News. Arkansas, tomorrow is Johnny Cash Friday, and we are stoked to talk to not only Congressman Bruce Westerman tomorrow, but we will also be talking. Wait for it. With author John M. Pafford about his book, Chester A. Arthur, The Accidental President. So we'll be talking to him tomorrow as well. Arkansas, be safe.